There's a lot of very powerful symbolism in the game, like the cracked mask, like everyone's just wearing masks, a facade of happiness, and they're just smiling away through the day. But sometimes your mask cracks, and you're afraid that people will see who's underneath. You're afraid that people will find out that you're actually sad, and that you're not as happy as you're pretending to the world to be, so to speak. And that is very true for a lot of people. A lot of people are out there putting on facades, and they're putting on masks, and they're putting on what they think the world wants them to see. And sadly, in the world we live in now in 2018, social media is more rampant than it's ever been. And while I love social media, I love interacting with people, I love keeping up to date with stuff, I love being able to inform you guys of what I'm doing, I love to be able to just tweet out jokes, to reblog pictures, to post stuff that I'm doing, different things like that. I love social media, but that's using social media in a positive way. And I feel like social media is a very, very powerful tool in one way or the other. It can very heavily sway from one side to the other very quickly. And I always try and use social media for good, for using any sort of influence to spread some more positivity, tell a joke, remind people of what you're doing, just keep people updated on things, different things like that. I love doing that. But on the other hand, people are growing up with social media now, and especially the types of stuff like Facebook, even though I haven't used Facebook in years, but many people still do. Facebook is the mask. Facebook and social media are this mask, because you're showing the world a version of yourself that you want to be the best version of yourself. You're showing people what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, but you're not showing them the down moments. Most people don't share those moments because they feel like they're a burden to other people. They feel like what they're talking about, if they talk too much about sadness, is just going to bum other people out, and it's going to make their followers or their likes go away. And it's a very scary time in internet culture, and I'm always fascinated by it, because I didn't grow up with social media. When I was growing up, in my teen years was when smartphones started to become a thing, and iPods and everything started to become a thing, and I didn't get the internet until I was 16. And even then, I barely even used Facebook until I was about 18. So by then, I was already an adult, but people these days are growing up with that sort of thing. And I'm very curious to see what will happen in a decade or so, or 20, 50 years, and people do studies on this stuff, and they survey the generation that are growing up with this, and seeing how it affects them, and seeing how it affects their mental health, because that shit cannot be good for you, one way or another. So I'd always say to use it in moderation. And also, there's some stuff that I disagree with in the game, because she was clearly very, very upset because she lost her friend. She may have been depressed. She was dealing very heavily with suicidal thoughts. A lot of people day to day go through that. Even without having lost someone, they go through that anyway. Waking up feeling like they're in a completely different planet than everybody else. And this game symbolized that by being in a place with the cat and the moon and everything just feels all discombobulated. You can't focus on the words that are even on the fridge. You're just drifting, and you're trying to find a way out of that. And for some people, like this lady here, suicide was a solution to that. And I would not agree with that, and I'll get into that in a second. But one of the things that struck me was that they went to the doctor, and they had on their smiley happy mask, and then the doctor offered them happy pills, and they could either refuse them or take them. And that's something that I don't agree with, because this game painted that as something that's very utopian, very, almost like, what's the name of the game? Oh, I can't think of it now, where you take the happy pills to be happy and everyone's wearing the masks. Oh, I can't think of it right now. You know the one. People are dressed up like British cops kind of thing, and it's a survival game. But like that, We Happy Few, that's what it's called. Like that game paints being happy as like a state of taking pills, but this game is about depression and suicide, and they went to the doctor, and the doctor offered them pills. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because for a lot of people, their depression is quite literally chemical imbalances in their brain. And there's a lot of, like, we're trying to break down that stigma of your mental health being an enemy. And this kind of painted it as getting help for that was a bad thing. Or that it was painted in a way that, like, the doctor had a mouthful of secrets and things like that. And it made it seem like the pills were a bad idea. But a lot of people have shown that taking medication for their depression has helped them immensely. Not everyone does go through that. Not everyone is helped by medication for their depression. For some people, it almost makes them worse. And it's about finding the right medication. But in some cases, medication does help. So I don't like that it kind of painted it in a negative light. And I would always advise anybody out there to go seek help if they're going through anything like that. I've never gone through the darkest depths of that, but I've definitely gone through some of it, so I can understand how your mind can spiral and get into certain states where you think that that's an acceptable answer, because then the pain stops, the confusion stops, the lack of knowing anything stops. But that's the thing. Everything stops. And that is... I'm trying to choose my words carefully. Because I'm not an authority on this. I'm not a trained psychological professional, and I would always recommend you go talk to somebody like that. All I can do is try and give some sort of advice to lead you on the right path, and to try and... I'd always say that my videos and my commentary and my advice are a way of pulling you out of moments like that. But they're not the be-all and end-all solution of those types of thoughts. Going and getting help from an actual qualified professional is always the right step forward, I think. And asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of breaking down or giving in to these feelings. If anything, it's the step forward to overcoming these feelings. And all it takes is, when you're in the darkest depths of despair, all it takes is that one moment of clarity. All it takes is that one tiny moment to pull you out of that, to make you feel like life is still worth living. And I would always argue that life is 100% worth living. Even at its darkest moments, life is worth living. Because life in its darkest moments always has the potential to turn into its brightest moments. In a year from now, in a week from now, in 10 years from now. You have no idea what's on the horizon. But it would be so sad to see somebody give up that potential happiness because they're in that moment of complete dark disparity. So if you are out there and you are going through stuff like that, and if a lot of the themes in this game have connected with you and resonated with you, please go out there and talk to somebody. Talk to anybody. Talk to a family member. If they won't listen, talk to a teacher, a friend, a psychologist, a doctor. There are many, many helplines on the internet that they're not even there sometimes to offer you a solution. They're just there to listen and hear you talk about your problems. And sometimes that's all it takes, is for someone to feel like they're listening. And again, that's why I said that I wanted to do YouTube in the first place, and why I focus so much on community and so much on doing good, because YouTube for me was an outlet at some of my darkest times when I didn't know where I was going in life. And I started YouTube because YouTube at that time gave me a family that I didn't know I needed or could even have. And then I decided to do it myself because I wanted to give that family to somebody else and to try and bring in people. And that's why I'm always promoting positivity and PMA and everything, because I feel like we can spread some joy and help people in these types of scenarios and make them feel like they're in a place where they belong. And PMA, positive mental attitude, is not about slapping on a happy mask. It's not about putting on a mask and pretending you're happy all day, every day, but going around and telling people to just smile and just have a positive mental attitude. It's about trying your best. Trying your best to work towards a more positive, more healthy, more contented you. And sometimes you might fail at that. Sometimes a day where you can't keep up your positive attitude, and that's fine. As long as you keep up the fight and you keep hanging in there and you just keep living, because eventually good things will come your way, especially if you make good strides towards it. And that's what PMA is about. And it's about trying to help others when they're feeling down. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm just saying PMA and positive mental attitude to slap some fake positivity on your faces, because let's face it, we're not all positive all the time. Even I have my dark times that I have to go through and my own doubts and worries. And everybody does. And a lot more celebrities are starting to come out and talk about their experiences with it, and I'm really happy about that, because we're starting to break down those stigmas against mental health, and that's a really great step forward. Anyway, I've talked a lot about just the ending of this, but that's what I said. It opens up a discussion about it, and it gives a good outlet for it, and people can share and talk and discuss in the comments, so...